Hello and what is up everyone, Thunderbob here, and today I am checking out some more Diablo 2 Resurrected Beta. I've put several hours into it at this point. I've got a couple of characters in their 20s, and I've got a good feel for how the beta is going. I wanted to do a quick video giving my thoughts on the beta, any issues I've run into, and see what other people are thinking. So I first off wanted to touch on the overall performance. And I am playing this live. I'll probably cut away to some pre-recorded video also. But overall performance has been quite good. Switching between acts, switching between areas is quick and snappy. Performance is generally above 100 frames per second. And I don't have a lot of FPS issues. I do think that they've maybe lowered a few of the particle effects, a few of the fire effects. But it's hard to tell without a side-by-side comparison. But I still think it looks good, and overall the performance is quite high. I've got a couple of videos showing, an hour or two of gameplay, if you want to see how the beta is running. And I'll have more to come over the next couple of days. And next up I wanted to discuss the performance issues with the server, specifically. Lag and desyncing and rubber banding are still something I experience. It definitely doesn't feel hugely different from playing on Battle.net today. Overall, it wasn't unplayable, but I definitely ran into situations where I would be teleported, between doorways. I'd be rubber banded backwards. I had no disconnects during my gameplay experience, but it was enough that I'm considering playing single player instead of multiplayer to avoid some of the lag issues. It's definitely on my mind. But overall, I would say the performance was decent. But what I'm wondering is next week is the open beta. Right now, this was just for people that pre-ordered and is a little bit more limited. Next week, when they dump a whole lot more people in, how is the performance going to be at that point? And next, I wanted to discuss the removal of TCP IP as an option. This was announced just before the beta started, so I'm going to include it in this video. I'm considering playing single player like I mentioned, but without TCP IP, it limits, playing with others, and it's not clear yet if open Battle.net is even going to be a thing. Like in Diablo 2, you can either play on closed Battle.net or open Battle.net using your single player characters. And if open Battle.net's not there and TCP IP is not there, playing single player means you can't play with others. So I'm curious about if they've changed that and if open Battle.net is still a thing. Also, the lack of TCP IP does impact modding. So if modding does become a thing, a lot of mods use that TCP IP setting to be able to play with other people who use the same mods. Some of the bigger mods out there, like Project Diablo 2, Median XL, they have their own custom servers, and you'd actually connect to a server browser that ran basically a modified Battle.net. And it's not clear if that's going to be an option. So if it's not and TCP IP is not there, if any of these mods do develop and have a following, how are you going to play with other people? So that's definitely a concern as well. There's also some other issues, specifically with the lobby. It's non-functional. Let me turn off that overlay. It's non-functional. You can't leave, you can't create chat channels, you can't join chat channels, you can't whisper anyone. I'm not sure if this is just limited to the beta or if they've cut a lot of this out. It seems like the UI is here to allow you to enter different chat channels, different lobbies, but none of it is functional. You used to be able to join a chat channel and you could command it. There's that whole Battle.net lobby system with who is in control of the channel. It was a fun little meta, but I can't figure out how any of it works. You also constantly get these messages about people joining and leaving different chat channels, even though you can't use any of them. You're constantly getting spammed in-game by these messages, and it's not clear why that is, how to stop it, and I really hope that's another thing that's limited to the beta and doesn't manage to be there at release. Another issue I ran into is, outside of a couple of games, the chat has just not worked. It's working right now. I can type in here and see the text. But in almost every game I've played, probably 10 games with other players in the last 3 days, the chat worked with other players 1 or 2 times. So you'd find situations where you look for a town portal and no one can hear your request, no one can see your text messages, and there's also no way to whisper any other players as far as I can tell. So definitely some issues with the chat. There were other bugs that I ran into as well. One in particular that was annoying is the control click to either move things between your inventory and your stash or to sell things works very intermittently. I just tried it 3 times in a row, and on the third one, instead of moving it over, it picked it up. I've tried control and click each time, and also tried to hold it, and neither way seems to work. There again, third time, I was clicking and not holding control at the same time as my mouse, and again, it just does not consistently work. There, I got 2 before, 1 before it stopped working. So control click, not very functional. There's also issues where if you use control click to equip items, sometimes it just drops them. Did you just see that? That's not good. I've run into other issues where whenever I talk to the vendors or open my inventory, my FPS get locked to 30. This is also seemingly an intermittent bug. When this happens, if you change the graphical settings to the classic style, it will crash your game. I've been able to consistently reproduce that. So if you go to the old graphical setting after experiencing the FPS bug, you will crash. The only way I seem to be able to fix the 30 FPS lock when you're opening your inventory is by restarting the game, after which you'll be back to your normal FPS. There's a few other minor bugs. Textures not loading. Like I had a situation where a wall just did not load in one of the dungeons. It looked like you should have been able to walk through it. Not a major problem, but an interesting one. You also get some crashes. I think over, 4 or 5 hours, I've probably had 4 or 5 crashes. I had 3, like, during my first session. It was kind of a bad opening, but since then it has subsided. I don't know if there was something going on with the server causing it, or something on my end, but there have been more crashes than I was experiencing playing the alpha. Okay, so one last issue I wanted to discuss, and this one is somewhat important to me. I think it's controversial in the Diablo 2 community, is the removal of ultrawide support and the lack of communication from Blizzard. So when Diablo 2 Resurrected was announced, one of the first things they announced was that it would support modern resolutions, including ultrawide. And in the first alpha, ultrawide was supported, and it was supported well. It worked really nicely. I've got 50 videos on my channel showing off how it worked. But there was a big backlash, primarily from like the PvP community, and they believe that you would get an unfair advantage from ultrawide. And I've been reading a lot of comments, and I get the argument, and I don't want an unfair advantage. I want to be able to take advantage of the hardware I have, the computer I have, the monitor I have. So my thought is, for PvP, my hope would be that they could come up with some solutions for this. An idea I've heard, some ideas I've had would be something like a PvP flag when you enter the game. In the lobby, being able to say this is a PvP game, or just a game that only allows non-ultra-wide resolutions, or that would enable the bars on the side here in those games. You could also have a setting where if you hostile another player, the bars get turned on as well. That's a thought. That would be a little jarring to suddenly have your aspect ratio kind of changed. There would be a slight advantage in PvP, I can see that. You would be able to name lock people on the edge of the screen that other players could not. Another thing that people have mentioned to me is that it's unfair for PvE. And that one I'm a little bit less sure about. I've played a lot of the alpha with ultrawide enabled. You can see all those videos if you'd like. And I've never run into a situation where an enemy did not aggro on me, that if I attacked it, it did not respond to me. I think in practice, this is a lot less of a problem than it seems to be, and there's some videos out there, people like showing off on like ridiculous 32 by 9 or even higher super ultra wide resolutions. I don't think at 21 by 9 that it's really much of an issue. I did want to demonstrate here. I was curious about it. If you do teleport and you try to teleport into the black area, it seems to stop you in the playable range. So if I go, you see it didn't go over the little triangle there, the little edge of the screen there. So if I click over here, it stopped me short. So it does seem like beyond just the vignetting here, the black bars, some spells, I think their range may be more limited, because in the alpha I could definitely teleport all the way to the edge of the screen, and that's something I think that they should change. So my thoughts for PvE, I think they should get rid of the black bars, but do one of a couple of things. I think they should do a pass on all of the spells, and any spells that can be targeted should have a limited range. Things like teleport, things like blizzard, you should only be able to cast on your screen, or if you cast them too far off, just like teleport here, when I teleport, it stops me at that point. If you cast a blizzard off screen, it should do it as far as it's able to. And that's how the controller works. I've got a video showing off controller support. With the controller, you can't target, but it has like a radius where it always casts that blizzard. So they've already got the tech working. It wouldn't be that hard for them to say, okay, if you cast blizzard off screen, it simply does it as far as it's allowed to, whatever they set that to, 16 by 9, 19 by 9, 21 by 9. I also think they could try like a fog of war on the side where you can still see the image, but you can't see enemies beyond a certain point, like maybe turn down the light radius when it gets to that point, but you can still kind of see the image. As I'm not looking for an advantage, I really just hate these bars taking up, 15 to 20% of both sides of my screen. That's what I'm looking for. And something I think people don't really think of with this argument, they'll say like, well, everyone should just use 16 by 9. The game wasn't built around ultra-wide. But the game wasn't built around widescreen either. This game originally ran at 800 by 600. Actually, it originally ran at 640 by 480, and the expansion enabled 800 by 600. So this is the extent of the original screen. And then 16 by 9, it's more like around here. And then 21 by 9 goes all the way to the edge. So the game has already been expanded by, 75%. And then ultra-wide goes maybe like another 25%. So for people saying, well, like, the game is broken once you enable ultra-wide, wouldn't the game also be broken when you enable widescreen? And I think the people making this argument are making it because they own a widescreen and not ultra-wide. What if, the fair option here would be to limit the screen to 4 by 3? That would keep the authentic Diablo 2 experience. So what if I made the argument that all you people with widescreen monitors should have black bars that are this size to keep the authentic Diablo experience? I don't think you'd like that very much. But I can understand there's a breaking point. There's a point where enemies will not aggro. I don't know exactly what that is. In my experience, the 21 by 9, generally you don't run into any issues. I'm sure Blizzard has tested that, and that's probably what the vignetting is about. But I think there are better ways they could go about doing this. And I think their communication on the matter is terrible. Just before the beta, they did a video about all of the graphical changes they had made and all the improvements they had made. Yet they didn't mention this at all. I feel like this is something that has a big impact on the game and a big impact on a lot of users. And people are expecting it to play how the alpha did, and they were expecting to play how it was announced. It was announced to have ultra-wide support, and this is not ultra-wide support. You cannot claim that this is ultra-wide support. I have a lot of people who have commented that they're refunding the game. I'm not at that point yet. I want to hear what Blizzard's, thoughts are on this, why they did this. But right now, I'm most unhappy about how they've gone about the change. They could have had, a 3-paragraph explanation, and maybe I would have been okay with it at that point. But just to load up the beta on Friday afternoon and have these black bars, and now it's 4 days later. I'm putting this video together Monday evening, and they still have not addressed the issue or even acknowledged that they've made the change. That's my biggest problem, I think. At the moment, I'm still planning on buying the game. I still love Diablo 2, and I even like the gameplay. You know, I've had some bugs, I've had some crashes, the bars on the side are annoying, but I still had a lot of fun getting 2 characters into their 20s and a couple of lower level characters at this point. And I'm looking forward to the full release. I just hope for better communication, and I do hope they find a better resolution for the bars on the screen. I'm not looking for an advantage. I would be fine with something like a Fog of War. I would be fine with a limitation on spells where you can't cast beyond a certain range, whatever range they determine is best. But I think adding black bars over 20% of the screen is just not the best option. So overall, I had fun. I enjoyed my time. I hope they can work out a couple of these bugs. The server issues, I hope, are better. I hope communication improves. And, you know, they've got a month to work through a lot of issues, and I hope they can. So that's where I'm at with the beta. If you've got any thoughts, any comments, please leave them below. If you enjoy the videos I put together, why don't you subscribe? I would very much appreciate it. And thank you for watching.